The images arrive in silence. No wind, no voices, no life to witness them. Only a thin atmosphere of carbon dioxide, stretched so fragile it can barely hold the planet together. And beneath it, a machine, alone, staring into a world that has not breathed for billions of years. What Perseverance has captured is not just Mars. It is time, exposed, jagged horizons carved by ancient water, sedimentary layers stacked like the memory of a vanished ocean, dust that moves in slow, ghost-like currents, whispering across a frozen desert where temperatures can plunge below -80 degrees Celsius. The surface looks still. It is not. Radiation from deep space rains down constantly, unfiltered, striking the ground with invisible violence. Microscopic particles slam into rock and metal alike, eroding, charging, altering everything they touch. The sky above, tinted in a pale butterscotch haze, hides a sun that feels distant and weak. Yet its light reveals textures so sharp, so unforgiving, they almost cut through the eye. And now, with unprecedented clarity, the rover's cameras reveal details never seen before. Grains of sand shaped by winds that have circled the planet for millions of years. Cracked terrain that speaks of catastrophic drying, where lakes once shimmered under a thicker sky. Rock formations that resemble river deltas, frozen mid-flow as if time itself stopped in an instant. But the beauty is deceptive. Mars is a graveyard of possibility. The same planet that once held liquid water, stable climates, and the chemical ingredients for life now stands stripped and exposed. Its magnetic field collapsed long ago, leaving its atmosphere to be slowly torn away by solar wind. What remains is a fragile shell, barely clinging to the surface, offering no protection, no warmth, no mercy. Perseverance moves through this hostile silence with deliberate precision. Every image it sends back is a fragment of a larger truth, a truth that is unsettling. Because the landscapes it captures do not feel alien. They feel familiar. Dry lake beds that echo deserts on Earth. Layered cliffs that resemble ancient canyons. Dust storms that rise and fall with a rhythm that almost feels alive. The geometry of the terrain suggests processes we understand: erosion, sedimentation, chemical alteration, but carried to an extreme that pushes the limits of habitability. And buried within these rocks lies the central question: not whether Mars was once alive, but how close it came. These new images are sharper, deeper, more revealing than anything before them. They expose textures measured in millimeters, mineral patterns that hint at past interactions with water, and surfaces that have remained undisturbed for unimaginable spans of time. Nothing here is random. Every crack, every ridge, every layer is a record of a world that changed and never recovered. As Perseverance continues its slow journey across Jezero Crater, it is not just exploring terrain. It is reading a planetary autopsy, and what it finds forces a quiet, uncomfortable realization. Mars did not simply die. It unraveled, and in the stark, hyper-detailed images now reaching Earth, that unraveling is no longer distant or abstract. It is visible. It is tangible. It is written across an entire world. The images do more than reveal a landscape. They reveal a sequence. Jezero Crater, where Perseverance now moves with careful intent, was not always a basin of dust and stone. It was once a living system of flowing water, fed by channels that carved their way across the Martian surface with persistent force. What now appears as a fractured, silent plain was once shaped by currents, sediment transport, and cycles that repeated over spans of time almost impossible to comprehend. The new images show the delta in extraordinary detail. A fan-shaped structure, spread wide across the crater floor, where an ancient river once slowed and released its burden. Each layer of sediment is still visible, stacked with delicate precision, like pages in a book that has never been turned. The geometry is unmistakable. On Earth, such formations emerge only where water flows consistently, carrying particles that settle according to size and weight. Heavier grains fall first, finer silts drift longer before resting. This quiet sorting process creates order out of motion, and here on Mars, that same order exists, preserved, untouched, and frozen in time. Some of the rocks appear rounded, not sharp, not jagged, but smooth, shaped by collision and friction as they tumbled through moving water. That simple detail carries enormous weight. Solid rock does not soften without time, and it does not round itself without motion. These stones were once part of a dynamic system, carried, eroded, and deposited with intention dictated by physics alone. Water was not a fleeting visitor here. It stayed. It persisted long enough to sculpt the land. The images reveal cross-bedded layers, angled and intersecting, indicating shifting currents and changing flow directions. These are the signatures of a complex environment, one that evolved over time rather than appearing in a single catastrophic event. The crater was not filled overnight. It was shaped gradually through cycles of inflow, deposition, and stillness. This implies stability. And stability is the rarest ingredient in the universe. Because for chemistry to become biology, for molecules to assemble into something capable of replication, the environment must remain predictable long enough for complexity to emerge. Chaos destroys potential. Stability nurtures it. Mars, in this moment of its past, had that stability. The mineral composition captured in these images deepens the story. Certain rocks reflect the presence of clay minerals, formed only when water interacts with volcanic material over extended periods. Clay is not just mud. It is a chemical archive. Its structure traps and preserves organic molecules, shielding them from radiation and degradation. On Earth, clay-rich environments are some of the most fertile grounds for preserving evidence of ancient life. Here on Mars, similar conditions once existed, and now they are exposed. The camera does not simply show rock, it shows possibility. Thin veins cut through the surface in bright, pale lines. Mineral deposits left behind by groundwater that once moved through cracks and pores in the rock. These veins are like scars, evidence of internal processes, of fluids that circulated beneath the surface long after rivers stopped flowing above it. Mars was not only wet on the outside, it was active within. This duality matters, because life, as it is understood, thrives in gradients. In the subtle differences between wet and dry, warm and cold, acidic and alkaline. Where fluids move, where minerals dissolve and reform, where energy is exchanged, complexity has a chance to arise. The images suggest that Mars once offered these gradients in abundance, and yet all of it ended. To understand the depth of that loss, one must look upward. Mars today has no global magnetic field. Without it, the solar wind, a continuous stream of charged particles emitted by the sun, strikes the atmosphere directly. Over billions of years, this relentless bombardment stripped away much of the planet's air. Molecules were ionized, accelerated, and lost to space, one by one. In a process so gradual, it feels almost gentle, yet so persistent, it became irreversible. the atmosphere thinned. Pressure dropped. Liquid water could no longer remain stable on the surface. It either froze or evaporated into the thin sky, disappearing into a cycle that the planet could no longer sustain. The images Perseverance sends back are shaped by this absence. The sky is pale not because it is full, but because it is empty. Light scatters differently in a thin atmosphere. Shadows sharpen. Distances feel deceptive. The horizon appears closer than it truly is, compressing scale in a way that makes vast plains feel confined, almost intimate. But the reality is immense. The crater spans tens of kilometers. The delta itself stretches wide, a monument to a system that once operated with quiet consistency over geological time. And now, it rests under a sky that cannot protect it. Radiation penetrates the surface, breaking down organic compounds, altering minerals, and slowly rewriting the chemistry of the planet. The very evidence of past habitability is being erased, grain by grain, atom by atom. Time on Mars is no longer creative. It is destructive. The rover's instruments measure this environment with precision. Temperature swings that can exceed 100 degrees Celsius between day and night. Atmospheric pressure less than 1% of Earth's. Dust particles so fine they remain suspended for long periods, capable of enveloping the entire planet in storms that blot out sunlight. These storms are visible in subtle ways within the images. A thin veil of dust softens distant features, creating gradients that shift almost imperceptibly. The ground itself carries the marks of aeolian processes, wind-driven patterns that ripple across the surface like frozen waves. These ripples migrate slowly, reshaping the landscape over time, just as water once did. Mars did not become static. It changed regimes, from water to wind, from erosion by rivers to erosion by dust, from a world that flowed to a world that drifts. And yet, the underlying structure remains. The delta is still there. The layers are still intact. The evidence persists, waiting to be interpreted. Perseverance moves across this terrain not as an observer, but as a reader of a language written in stone. Every image is a sentence. Every outcrop is a paragraph. And together, they form a narrative that stretches back billions of years to a time when Mars may have resembled a younger Earth. But resemblance is not destiny. Two planets can begin with similar conditions and diverge completely. Earth retained its magnetic field. Its atmosphere remained dense. Its water stayed liquid. Its surface became a cradle for life, complexity building upon complexity until awareness itself emerged. Mars lost its shield. And with that loss, everything else followed. The images force a comparison that is difficult to ignore. They show what happens when a planet crosses a threshold it cannot return from. Not through sudden catastrophe, but through slow unraveling, a gradual failure to hold on to the conditions that make life possible. This is not a distant, abstract concept. It is a physical reality, captured in high resolution. You can see it in the cracked mudstones, in the desiccated channels, in the mineral veins that no longer carry fluid. You can trace the sequence from abundance to absence, from motion to stillness. And within that sequence lies a question that extends beyond Mars itself. How fragile is habitability? The answer is written across the images in quiet, unambiguous detail. It is extremely fragile, dependent on invisible shields, delicate balances, and processes that operate over timescales far longer than any individual life can perceive. Mars had rivers. Mars had lakes. Mars had the chemistry required for life. And yet, it became what we now see, a world where the past is preserved. But the present offers no refuge. Perseverance continues to collect samples from this ancient delta, drilling into rock that has not been altered since the water disappeared. These samples are not just geological curiosities. They are time capsules, sealed records of environmental conditions that may once have supported microbial ecosystems. If life ever emerged here, even at its simplest level, traces of it may still exist within these rocks. Not alive, but remembered, encoded in isotopic ratios, in molecular structures, in patterns too subtle for the human eye, but unmistakable to the instruments designed to detect them. The images, in their stark clarity, are the first layer of that investigation. They guide the rover's path. They highlight targets. They reveal where the past is most likely to have left its mark. But they also do something less tangible. They confront us with a mirror. Because the forces that shaped Mars are not unique. Solar wind exists everywhere. Magnetic fields can weaken. Atmospheres can be lost. Climate systems can shift. The difference is not in the laws of physics. The difference is in the outcomes. Mars is one possible outcome. And as these images continue to arrive, each more detailed than the last, they deepen a narrative that is both scientific and philosophical. A narrative about beginnings, about transformations, and about endings that unfold so slowly they can only be understood in retrospect. In the silence of Mars, nothing explains itself, but everything is recorded. And now, for the first time with such precision, we are beginning to read it. Beneath the surface of Mars, beyond the reach of its thin and fading sky, another story unfolds. One that the images only begin to suggest, but never fully reveal. Perseverance does not merely photograph what lies exposed. It searches for what is hidden. Because the most important chapters of Mars may not be written in its open landscapes, but buried in the quiet darkness below them, where time slows, radiation weakens, and the fragile signatures of chemistry can survive intact. The images now being returned show fractures, fine, intricate networks of cracks running through ancient rock. At first glance, they appear as simple damage, the inevitable result of billions of years of stress, impact, and thermal expansion. But these fractures are more than scars. They are pathways. Long ago, liquid waters seeped into these openings, moving through the subsurface like blood through capillaries. It dissolved minerals, transported ions, and deposited new moaid as conditions shifted. In these confined spaces, shielded from the harsh radiation above, chemistry could persist in a way that surface conditions would never allow. This environment is not chaotic. It is controlled. Temperature variations are less extreme. Pressure is slightly higher. Chemical gradients are sustained rather than disrupted. It is here, in these narrow, hidden corridors, that the boundary between geology and biology becomes thin. On Earth, similar environments teem with microbial life. Deep beneath the surface, in cracks within rock, entire ecosystems exist without sunlight. They draw energy from chemical reactions, feeding on gradients of oxidation and reduction, transforming minerals into fuel. Life in these places is not dependent on warmth or light, but on imbalance. Where there is imbalance, there is opportunity. The images of mineral veins cutting through Martian rock are silent evidence of those past imbalances. Bright streaks of calcium sulfate and other evaporate minerals mark the routes where water once flowed, then vanished, leaving behind its dissolved contents like fingerprints on stone. Each vein is a record of movement. Each deposit is a moment when liquid existed long enough to alter its surroundings. And where liquid water interacts with rock, energy is exchanged. This is not speculation, it is chemistry. The rover's instruments detect variations in elemental composition at scales measured in millimeters. Iron, sulfur, magnesium, and carbon appear in combinations that suggest reactions once took place. Reactions that, on Earth, are often mediated or accelerated by living systems. But here lies the tension. Chemistry alone can produce complexity. Life is not required for patterns to emerge. Minerals can organize, structures can form, and reactions can cycle without ever crossing the threshold into biology. The challenge is not finding complexity. It is distinguishing its origin. The images guide this search by revealing context. A layered rock is not just a rock. It is a sequence of environments. A vein is not just a deposit. It is a history of fluid movement. A fracture is not just a break. It is a conduit that once connected isolated systems. Context transforms observation into meaning. And meaning, in this case, is everything. Because the question is no longer whether Mars had water. That is already answered. The question is whether that water, in all its forms, flowing rivers, standing lakes, seeping groundwater, created conditions stable and diverse enough for life to begin. The images suggest that it did. But suggestion is not proof. And so, Perseverance drills. It penetrates the surface, extracting cores of rock that have remained sealed from the destructive forces above. These samples are stored with care, each one a fragment of a larger puzzle that will one day be returned to Earth. Inside these samples may lie organic molecules, chains of carbon that form the backbone of life as it is known. But organic does not mean alive. These molecules can form through purely chemical processes, delivered by meteorites or synthesized in place. The distinction lies in pattern. Life leaves behind signatures that are difficult to replicate through non-biological means. Ratios of isotopes, distributions of molecules, structures that reflect repetition with variation. These are the subtle indicators that something more than chemistry may have occurred. The images, in their high resolution, help identify where these signatures are most likely to be preserved. Fine-grained sediments, clay-rich deposits, regions where water once lingered rather than rushed. Stillness, once again, becomes important. Because life does not emerge in violence, it emerges in persistence, in environments where change is slow enough for complexity to accumulate, but dynamic enough to provide energy and variation. Mars, in its ancient past, appears to have offered precisely that balance. And yet, it failed to sustain it. The implications of this are profound, because it suggests that the emergence of life may not be the rarest step. The maintenance of habitable conditions may be far more fragile. A planet can approach the threshold of life, can assemble the ingredients, create the environments, sustain the processes, and still fall short or succeed only briefly before losing everything. Mars becomes a case study in near-miss existence. A world that may have stood at the edge of biology, only to be pulled back by forces beyond its control. The loss of its magnetic field was not dramatic. There was no single moment of collapse visible from space. Instead, the planet's internal dynamo slowed, weakened, and eventually ceased. Without the motion of molten metal in its core to generate a protective field, Mars became exposed. The solar wind, invisible but relentless, began to strip away the atmosphere. Lighter molecules escaped first. Hydrogen drifted into space, followed by oxygen. Water, once abundant, was broken apart by ultraviolet radiation. Its components were lost, piece by piece, until the balance shifted irreversibly. The images of dry channels and empty basins are the surface expression of this invisible process. They are the aftermath. And beneath them, in the fractures and veins, lies the record of a planet trying to adapt to its own decline. Groundwater persisted longer than surface water. It retreated downward, seeking stability, flowing through rock long after rivers disappeared. In this retreat, it may have carried with it the last habitable environments on Mars. If life ever existed here, this is where it would have gone. Downward, away from the radiation, into the rock. The images hint at this migration. They show minerals that form only in the presence of subsurface water. They reveal patterns that suggest prolonged interaction between fluids and a succour. They expose a hidden network that once connected the surface to the depths. But they also show the end of that network. The veins are dry, the fractures are empty, the chemistry has stopped. Mars, in losing its atmosphere, did not just lose its oceans, it lost its circulation. A living planet moves energy and material through cycles. Water evaporates, condenses, flows, infiltrates, and returns. Carbon cycles between atmosphere, ocean, and rock. Heat rises and falls, driving motion in the core and crust. Mars became still. Its cycles broke. And without cycles, complexity cannot be maintained. The images, for all their detail, capture this stillness in a way that is almost unsettling. There's no movement of liquid, no shifting of clouds dense enough to matter, no sign of renewal. The planet exists in a kind of suspended state, where change continues, but only in the direction of decay. Dust settles, radiation alters, temperature fluctuates, but nothing builds, nothing grows, nothing returns. This is what Perseverance witnesses. Not just a place, but a condition where the past is preserved with extraordinary clarity, precisely because the present is so inactive. Mars is a museum of its own history, each layer exposed, each feature frozen, each process halted at a specific point in time. The images are not snapshots. They are archives, and as we study them, as we trace the Htut of ancient water and the Athar of subsurface chemistry, we are confronted with a possibility that extends far beyond a single planet. That the universe may be filled with worlds like Mars. Worlds that almost became something more. Worlds that assembled the ingredients, approached the threshold, and then lost the delicate balance required to continue. Perseverance does not answer this question directly, but with every image, it refines it. It narrows the uncertainty. It reveals just how close Mars may have come, and how easily that closeness can be undone. Beyond the surface, beyond the chemistry, beyond even the possibility of life, there is another dimension to what these images reveal. One that is not about Mars alone, but about the nature of observation itself. Perseverance stands on a world where no eyes ever evolved to see. No creatures ever looked upward to track the movement of stars. No beings ever traced the flow of rivers or wondered where the water went. Yet here, now, a machine built by human hands records this landscape with instruments far more sensitive than any biological sense. It sees in wavelengths that have no names in human language. It measures compositions with precision down to the atomic level. It captures details that would remain invisible forever if not for the deliberate act of looking. The images are not passive. They are an intervention, because the moment these images are captured, Mars ceases to be entirely separate from us. It is no longer a distant, indifferent world. It is a world that has been seen, recorded, and integrated into the human story. And that act of seeing changes everything. Consider the surface itself. The ground beneath Perseverance's wheels is not merely dust and rock. It is particles of silicate, fragments of basalt, grains shaped by eons of abrasion, each one carrying the history of collisions, weathering, and transport. These grains are not uniform. They vary in size, shape, composition, and color. Some are dark, rich in iron and magnesium. Others are light, coated in iron oxides that give Mars its characteristic red tone. The images reveal this variation in extraordinary detail. Tiny differences in brightness, subtle shifts in texture, microscopic variations in color that speak to different origins and different histories. A single grain may have been formed in a volcanic eruption, shattered by an impact, transported by water, and then reshaped by wind. Its journey spans millions of years, across continents that no longer exist, through environments that have vanished completely. And yet, it remains, preserved in place, waiting to be found. This is the paradox of Mars. It is a world that has lost everything that made it dynamic. And in doing so, it has become an archive of incomparable clarity. On Earth, the same processes that create life also destroy evidence. Plate tectonics recycle the crust. Erosion wears down mountains. Life itself consumes and transforms organic material. The record is constantly being rewritten. Mars has no such recycling, no plate tectonics, no active erosion strong enough to erase the past, no biology to consume and redistribute material. The surface is a thin veil over a deep, unchanging history. The images capture this stillness in a way that is almost meditative. There is no urgency, no chaos, no noise. Only the quiet geometry of rock, sediment, and mineral, arranged by forces that operated with perfect consistency over vast spans of time. And yet, within that stillness, there is motion. Not visible motion, but implied motion. The layers of the delta were deposited by currents that flowed with measurable velocity. The rounded stones were carried by water, moving with enough force to tumble them repeatedly. The ripples in the sand were shaped by wind that moved across the surface with persistent direction. These movements are gone, but their traces remain. Like footprints in the frost, they indicate that something passed through, something moved, something changed. And now, that change is frozen. This is the nature of geological time. It operates on scales that defy human intuition. A river that flows for 1,000,000 years carves a canyon. A wind that blows for 1 billion years smooths a mountain. A chemical reaction that occurs slowly over hundreds of millions of years creates a deposit that can be measured in kilometers. Human lives are so brief that they cannot perceive this scale directly. We can only infer it through the evidence left behind. The images allow us to do that inference. They compress deep time into a single frame. They make the invisible visible. They allow us to see, in a single moment, the accumulated effect of processes that no longer exist. And in doing so, they force a confrontation with a fundamental truth. We are observers of something far larger than ourselves. We are the only known beings in the universe who can look back in time through the evidence of rock and mineral. We are the only known beings who can reconstruct the history of a world we never inhabited. We are the only known beings who can ask not just what is, but what was. and what might have been. This capacity is not trivial. It is the essence of consciousness. To perceive the past is to understand the present. To understand the present is to anticipate the future. And to anticipate the future is to make choices that may alter it. Mars becomes a mirror in this sense. It shows us what happens when a world loses its capacity to sustain complexity. It shows us the fragility of the conditions that allow life to emerge. It shows us the inevitability of change and the irreversibility of certain thresholds. And it shows us, with brutal clarity, that not all the worlds that begin promisingly will continue. Perseverance continues its work with deliberate slowness. It moves at a pace measured in centimeters per day. It pauses to examine, to drill, to analyze. It does not rush, because the questions it seeks to answer do not yield to urgency. They require patience. They require precision. They require the willingness to wait for truth to reveal itself. This slowness is itself a form of respect. Respect for the complexity of the planet. Respect for the difficulty of the questions. Respect for the vast spans of time that created the landscape we now see. The images, for all their detail, are not the end of the story. They are the beginning. They guide the rover's path. They identify targets of interest. They reveal where the past is most likely to have left its mark. But they also reveal the limits of what can be known from a distance. No matter how sharp the image, how precise the measurement, there are questions that can only be answered in a laboratory. Molecular structures must be analyzed at scales beyond the reach of remote instruments. Isotopic ratios must be measured with precision that requires massive equipment. Organic molecules must be distinguished from their abiotic counterparts with a subtlety that demands human-designed experiments. This is why the samples are being collected, why they are being stored, why they will one day be returned to Earth. The images are the map. The samples are the territory. And the journey between them is the work of generations. Because this is not a single mission. It is a sequence. It is a chain of inquiry that stretches backward to the earliest telescopic observations of Mars and forward to a future where humans may stand on its surface themselves. The images connect us to that chain. They are links in a chain of curiosity that spans centuries. They are proof that we are not done looking. We are not done asking. We are not done seeking. And in that seeking, there is something deeply human. Because the drive to understand is not just a practical impulse. It is an existential one. To know where we come from is to understand who we are. To know where other worlds have gone is to understand where we might go. To know what is possible is to understand what is necessary. Mars, in its silence, offers no answers, but it offers questions that cannot be ignored. It asks us to consider the fragility of habitability. It asks us to reflect on the rarity of stable conditions. It asks us to confront the possibility that life, even in its simplest forms, may be far more elusive than we hope. And it asks us, quietly but persistently, whether we are prepared to recognize life if we find it. Because the signatures may be subtle, the evidence may be ambiguous, the truth may be hidden in patterns too faint for the casual observer. Perseverance does not claim to know. It only seeks. It only records. It only preserves. And in doing so, it fulfills its purpose, not to deliver certainty, but to deepen the question. The images are not the destination. They are the path. And as they continue to arrive, sharper and more revealing than before, they guide us forward into a mystery that is not about Mars alone. It is about us. It is about our place in the cosmos. It is about our capacity to understand a world we never built, in a universe we did not choose. And it is about the humility required to accept that some answers will take generations to find. In the meantime, the images remain. A record of a world that may have been alive, a record of a world that is now silent, and a record of the moment when we finally began to see it clearly. The images do not end with the landscape. They extend beyond it, into the very fabric of what it means to exist on a planet that is not home. Perseverance moves across Mars, not as a native, but as an intruder. Careful, deliberate, aware that every touch, every movement, every choice carries consequences that echo across the mission, the planet, and the understanding of both. The rover itself is a marvel of engineering, but in the images, it appears almost invisible. Only its shadow reveals its presence, a dark, elongated shape stretching across the pale dust, marking the direction of the sun, the time of day, the angle of light that has traveled nearly 200 million kilometers to reach this surface. That shadow is the only proof that something foreign is here. Something built by hands that have never touched this ground. Something that thinks, calculates, and transmits across the gulf between worlds. The imagery captures the contrast between the machine and the environment with stark clarity. The rover's wheels are scarred by the terrain, bent, dented, marked by the sharp edges of rocks that have not been softened by water or wind in billions of years. These scars are not failures. They are records of contact. Every dent is a moment when the machine met the planet, when human intention encountered Martian reality. The wheels roll over ground that has known no foot, no wheel, no tire for as long as the planet has existed. They compress dust that has settled undisturbed since the last time water flowed. They displace particles that have remained in place for epochs beyond counting. This is not tourism. This is contact. And contact always changes both sides. Because the rover is not merely observing Mars, it is interacting with it. It drills into rock, extracting material that has been sealed from the surface. It touches the ground, leaving behind the imprint of metal on dust. It transmits signals that travel through the thin atmosphere, bouncing off satellites, crossing the void, reaching Earth as a stream of data that will be interpreted, analyzed, and understood by minds that have never seen this world. The images are the result of that interaction. They are not pure. They are filtered through the choices of what to capture, where to point, how to adjust exposure, which wavelengths to prioritize. Every image is a decision. Every decision is a bias. And every bias shapes what we come to know. This is the nature of exploration. It is never neutral. It is always mediated by the tools we bring, the questions we ask, and the expectations we hold. The images of Mars are not Mars itself. They are Mars as seen through human eyes, through human instruments, through human priorities. They are a translation. And like all translations, something is lost, something is gained, something is transformed. The loss is the planet in its full, unobserved reality. The parts that remain unseen, unmeasured, unremarked. The gain is the parts that become knowable, that enter the human story, that become part of our collective understanding. The transformation is the planet itself, which ceases to be entirely alien once it has been seen. It becomes a world we can speak of, think about, and perhaps one day return to. This transformation is not trivial. It is the foundation of all exploration. Because to explore is not merely to discover. It is to integrate, to bring the unknown into the known, to make the distant a djinn, to make the strange familiar, and in doing so, to change both the explorer and the explored. The images reveal another layer of this dynamic. They show the sky, not as a human would see it from Earth, but as it appears from the surface of Mars. The sun is smaller, fainter, less dominant. It rises and sets with the same geometry, but with a different character. Its light is cooler, less intense, filtered through an atmosphere that scatters blue wavelengths more than red. The result is a sky that is pale, almost ghostly, with a hue that shifts from butterscotch near the horizon to a bluish tint near the sun. This is not the warm, golden sky of Earth. It is the sky of a world that is cold, thin, and distant. The stars, when visible, are sharper than on Earth. There is less atmospheric turbulence to blur their light. They appear as points of absolute precision, unblinking, unwavering, unchanging. They are the same stars that humans have navigated by for millennia. But from Mars, they are different. They are farther away from the center of the story. Earth, when visible, appears as a bright point of light near the sun, a morning star or an evening star, depending on the alignment. It is our home, seen from a distance that makes it indistinguishable from any other world. This is the ultimate perspective. To see Earth not as the center of everything, but as one point among many. To see the planet that created us as a speck of light in a vast, indifferent sky. The images, in capturing this sky, capture that perspective. They force us to confront the reality that we are not the default. We are not the standard. We are not the center. We are one possible outcome among many, arising under specific conditions that may be rare or may be common, but are certainly not guaranteed. This realization is not humbling, because it diminishes us. It is humbling because it expands the context. It places us in a universe that is far larger, far older, and far more complex than our instincts suggest. It reminds us that the laws of physics are universal, but the outcomes are not. The same physics that allowed life to emerge on Earth also operated on Mars. The same chemistry that built molecules on Earth also occurred on Mars. The same processes that shaped landscapes on Earth also shaped landscapes on Mars. And yet, the outcomes diverged. Earth became a cradle of life. Mars became a graveyard of possibility. The images capture this divergence in quiet, unambiguous detail. They show a world that could have been like ours. They show a world that almost was. And they show a world that is no longer. This is the philosophical weight of the images. They are not just pictures of rocks and dust. They are pictures of paths not taken. They are pictures of possibilities that were realized and possibilities that were not. They are pictures of the fragility of existence itself. Perseverance continues its work with this weight in the background. It does not carry it explicitly. It does not feel it. It is a machine, after all. But the humans who built it, who control it, who interpret its data, those humans carry it. They carry the knowledge that this mission is not just about Mars. It is about us. It is about our capacity to reach beyond our world. It is about our willingness to ask questions that may take generations to answer. It is about our ability to see ourselves in the context of a universe that does not care whether we exist or not. And yet, we exist. We ask, we seek, we look. The images are proof of that. They are the result of a chain of decisions, of efforts, of resources, of curiosity that spans centuries. They are the result of a species that refuses to accept ignorance as final. They are the result of a species that believes the unknown is worth knowing. This belief is not rational in the strictest sense. It is not guaranteed to succeed. It is not efficient in terms of energy or time or resources. It is not necessary for survival in the short term. And yet, it is the belief that has driven us to explore, to expand, to understand. It is the belief that has taken us from the first telescopic observations of Mars to the rovers that now drive across its surface. It is the belief that will take us further if we choose to continue. The images are not the end of that journey. They are a waypoint. They are a moment in a longer story. And as they continue to arrive, sharper and more revealing, they invite us to consider what comes next. Do we return? Do we send humans? Do we bring the samples back? Do we continue to search for life? Do we prepare for the possibility that we may find it, or that we may not? The images do not answer these questions. They only deepen them. They only make them more urgent. They only make them more real. Because every image is a reminder that Mars is not an abstraction. It is a place. It is a world. It is a reality that exists whether we observe it or not. And it is a world that we are now part of, whether we are ready or not. The contact has been made. The observation has occurred. The integration has begun. And there is no going back. The images are the proof. They are the record. They are the beginning of a new chapter in the story of humanity and the cosmos. A chapter that is still being written. A chapter that will be written by those who come after us. A chapter that may one day include humans walking on the surface that Perseverance now traverses alone. Until then, the images continue to arrive. Sharp, clear, unflinching, revealing a world that is dead, yet full of questions. Revealing a world that is silent, yet speaks volumes. Revealing a world that is distant, yet somehow close. And revealing us, in the process, as we truly are. Observers, seekers, explorers, knowing that the universe is vast, knowing that we are small, knowing that we are here, and knowing that this is enough to begin. The images arrive in silence, and in that silence is the answer to everything we have been asking. Not a direct answer, not a statement written in stone or inscribed in light, but an answer nonetheless. Because what Perseverance has revealed is not just a landscape, it is a mirror. It is a reflection of what happens when a world begins with promise and loses the conditions necessary to sustain it. It is a reflection of what happens when stability fails, when protection vanishes, when the delicate balance that allows complexity to emerge is broken beyond repair. And in that reflection, we see ourselves. Not because Mars is like Earth, but because Mars shows us what Earth could become if the balances we take for granted are disrupted. The images show dry riverbeds where water once flowed. They show lake beds where sediment settled in stillness. They show mineral veins where groundwater circulated beneath the surface. They show a world that was once active, dynamic, and potentially habitable. And they show a world that is now still, silent, and frozen in time. This transformation is not a mystery. It is a process. It is the result of physical laws operating over timescales that are incomprehensible to human life, but perfectly clear to the geological record. The magnetic field collapsed. The atmosphere thinned. The water disappeared. The surface was exposed to radiation. The cycles broke. The complexity ceased. and the planet became what it is now. A world where the past is preserved with extraordinary clarity precisely because the present is so inactive. This is the lesson of Mars. It is not that life is impossible. It is that life is fragile. It is not that habitability is common. It is that habitability is rare. It is not that the universe is hostile. It is that the universe is indifferent. And indifference, over time, becomes destruction. The images force us to confront this truth without softening it. There is no drama in the collapse of a magnetic field. There is no catastrophe in the thinning of an atmosphere. There is no violence in the disappearance of water. The process is slow, gradual, and inevitable once the threshold is crossed. And once crossed, there is no return. Mars did not die in a moment. It died over billions of years, and it died quietly. This quietness is what makes the images so powerful. They do not show destruction in action. They show the aftermath. They show what remains when the process is complete. They show the end state of a world that lost its ability to sustain itself. And in showing that end state, they ask us to consider our own. What conditions sustain us? What protects us? What would happen if those conditions changed? What would happen if the protection failed? What would happen if the balance shifted? These are not abstract questions. They are questions about survival. They are questions about continuity. They are questions about whether the conditions that allowed life to emerge on Earth will continue to allow it to persist. The images of Mars do not answer these questions, but they provide context. They provide a second data point. They provide a comparison that makes the uniqueness of Earth more apparent. Earth has a magnetic field. Earth has a dense atmosphere. Earth has liquid water wending on its surface. Earth has plate tectonics that recycle the crust and regulate climate. Earth has a moon that stabilizes its axial tilt. Earth has a biosphere that actively maintains its own habitability. All of these conditions work together to create a system that is resilient, adaptive, and self-regulating. Mars had some of these conditions once, but not all of them. And not for long enough. The difference is not in the laws of physics. The difference is in the outcomes. And the outcomes are what matter, because the laws of physics are universal. But the outcomes are not. Two planets can start with similar conditions and diverge completely. One becomes a cradle of life. The other becomes a graveyard of possibility. The images capture this divergence in stark, unambiguous detail. They show what is possible. They show what is not. They show what was. They show what is. And they show what could be. Perseverance continues its work with this context in the background. It does not carry it explicitly. It does not feel it. It is a machine after all. But the humans who built it, who control it, who interpret its data, those humans carry it. They carry the knowledge that this mission is not just about finding evidence of past life on Mars. It is about understanding the conditions that allow life to exist at all. It is about understanding the fragility of those conditions. It is about understanding whether we are alone in the universe or whether we are just one example among many. It is about understanding whether life is a cosmic imperative or a cosmic accident. These are the questions that drive us. These are the questions that justify the cost, the effort, the time. Because the answers matter. They matter for our understanding of ourselves. They matter for our understanding of our place in the cosmos. They matter for our understanding of our future. The images are not the end of the journey. They are a milestone. They are a moment of clarity in a longer process of discovery. And as they continue to arrive, sharper and more revealing, they invite us to consider what we will do with what we have learned. Will we continue to explore? Will we continue to search? Will we continue to ask? Or will we accept ignorance as final? The images suggest that we will not accept ignorance, because if we did, we would not have sent Perseverance. We would not have built the instruments. We would not have transmitted the signals. We would not have looked. But we did look, and we are still looking. And that is the answer. That is the proof. That is the meaning. We are a species that seeks. We are a species that asks. We are a species that refuses to accept the unknown as final. And that is what makes us different. Not that we are the center of the universe. Not that we are the only life. Not that we are guaranteed to survive. But that we ask, that we seek, that we look. The images of Mars are the result of that seeking. They are the result of that looking. They are the result of that asking. And they are the beginning of more asking, more looking, more seeking. Because the journey does not end here. It continues. It will continue long after Perseverance stops moving, long after its instruments fail, long after its power runs out. The questions will remain. The search will continue. The looking will persist. And one day, perhaps, humans will stand on the surface that Perseverance now traverses alone. They will look at the same sky. They will see the same horizon. They will touch the same ground. And they will understand, in a way that we cannot yet fully grasp, what it means to be on another world. They will understand the distance. They will understand the isolation. They will understand the fragility of the conditions that allow them to exist at all. And they will carry that understanding back to Earth. They will carry it in their minds. They will carry it in their memories. They will carry it in the stories they tell. And those stories will shape what comes next. Until then, the images remain. A record of a world that may have been alive. A record of a world that is now silent. A record of the moment when we finally began to say it clearly. And a record of us in the process of seeing, of reaching, of becoming something more than we were before. The images are not just pictures. They are a transformation. They are a moment when the unknown became known, even partially. They are a moment when the distant became near, even in understanding. They are a moment when the alien became familiar, even in its difference. And they are a moment when we, as a species, took another step forward into the cosmos. Not because we had to, not because it was easy, not because it was guaranteed to succeed, but because we chose to. Because we believed it was worth it. Because we believed that the unknown is worth knowing. And that belief, that stubborn, irrational, beautiful belief, is what drives us. It is what brought us here. It is what will bring us further. It is what will keep us looking, even when the answers are slow to come, even when the cost is high, even when the odds are uncertain. Because the looking itself is the meaning. The seeking itself is the purpose. The asking itself is the proof that we are here, that we exist, that we matter, not because the universe cares, but because we care. Not because the cosmos is listening, but because we are listening to ourselves, to our curiosity, to our wonder, to our refusal to accept silence as final. The images of Mars are the sound of that refusal. They are the voice of that curiosity. They are the expression of that wonder. and they are the beginning of everything that comes next. So we continue. We continue to look. We continue to ask. We continue to seek. And we continue to hope, not for certainty, not for easy answers, not for guarantees, but for the next image, the next question, the next step. Because that is what we do. That is who we are. And that is enough.